So I was reading this article and I was wondering why I could relate a little bit to it, and I started to see that maybe it was like the way that I was raised and the places that I've lived in the last couple of years that have allowed me to see actually different ways of education, or more just like the way different cultures educate. So I kept thinking about my hometown in Mexico and just how education works there, and it was very much a little bit of what this author was explaining in his journal, where the students are just expected to take in the content and they really don't really have much of a choice in what they're learning. They are just learning, and even with that too, because there are very few private schools in my town, it is mostly the private schools that actually take a lot of effort into teaching. I'm not going to say that it's all the public schools don't really care, but for sure there is more of an effort from the private schools to see student success, and also to allow students a little bit of more impact and influence too in their education and choice as well. Whereas in the public schools, which my cousins attended, I've heard of them talking about professors or teachers who would rarely come prepared. They would just give them papers to read or worksheets to answer, and there really wasn't much of an investment in the students' education, and then there wasn't really much of an understanding that the students, this was like their future. Some of the teachers had these jobs just because they had been given to them by the government, and somehow they were not able to be fired. So they would just show up every day, do what they were supposed to, and then, which wasn't always teaching the students. There are some good teachers, but there's also some really bad ones. So, like, I've heard of both. And this, where, like, I'm reading through some of the things that I've highlighted, where, education should be a collaboration between teacher and between student, where it's not the teacher, like it says, giving the student the answers, like this is what you do, this is how you do it. It's more teaching students how to think critically and how to use their own mind, what they know, what they don't know, and learn how to find answers as well, rather than just always like expect to be given the right answer. And I see that with one of my students, in my tab placement, when she's not sure how to answer a question, she'll kind of just like look at me and wait, and then she'll just be like, I don't know. And I'll be like, I can't give you the answer. Like, I can walk you through it. I can tell you maybe a hint of what it is that you need to do, but I honestly can't give you the answer. And in a way, I know she's new to the system, so maybe she's used to a different kind of education place where they just give her the answers. And I was noticing too that perhaps part of these differences are due to the cultural differences, or the cultures that students come from. For example, there are education placements or schools or students that have come from places where there's more of a high power or high authority distance. So, what that means is that a student shows utmost respect to an adult or to a teacher or to someone in placement of power. So for them to come to the teacher and explain, this is what I want to learn, or I don't really understand this, or I don't really like this, it's a major form of disrespect for them because of just the cultural setting that they were raised in. So this also reminded me of that. But one of the things that I really liked as Frere, I believe, is the author, as he explained the problem, how we don't take into account the students and their gifts, and they're just kind of stagnant. There's not a lot of a growth or just like effort put into the students for the students to take part into the transformation of education. And I really like how he put it, that the teacher and the student become co-investigators of knowledge and of the world, suggesting that it is also part of the students' responsibility for them to transform their place, their setting, and where they are, that the reality where they find themselves and can always be improved, and there can always be something better, and there's always a better way to learn things, which I really appreciated. And also how it talked about how students who are oppressed, or in other words, maybe consider themselves stupid, which I hear it a lot in middle school. I don't know this, I'm stupid, or like, can't believe I did that, I'm so stupid. They're starting to talk themselves down to also not believe in themselves, um, and just to think of themselves as less than the other students, less than the teacher, less than anyone in the community. And why would I be important? But our job as a teacher too is to encourage our students, support them, and even if we're just like saying to them like you matter, even if it's not through those words, even if we're showing our students that we care about them, I think more importantly than is to like help them believe it, because you can say it as a lot of times, but I think it's when you show it to them, and then they start to believe it, when they start to see the consistency of you caring about them, asking them how things went, for the weekend, or what they did, and how their game went. So just like also showing that investment, showing that you're invested in them as a person and not just in them as a grade in your classroom. Um, but also I wasn't sure about this article until the end when I realized it was talking about like reading. But other than that, I really liked how it talked about culture, and how students are representatives of their own lives and representatives of their community, their culture, and their dreams too. So.